Hello and welcome to Open Line. I'm Starlene Stringer. We all depend on water, but it is in short supply. The city of Irving remains under Stage 3 restrictions. Stage 3 is classified as a water emergency. On this edition of Open Line, we're going to learn more about what that means and the changes you can make in your home. Viewers were invited to submit questions via email, Facebook, and Twitter, and we'll be getting those answered throughout the show. Our special guests are Water Utilities Director Todd Reck and Programs Manager Donna Starling. We want to thank them both for being here. Thank y'all so much. Well, Todd, we're going to start with you. The first question is, we mentioned Stage 3 restrictions. What does that mean exactly?
Stage 3 is essentially, it's a one-day-a-week irrigation schedule. So we have different days of the week that we spread our customers out. Commercial industrial customers can water on Tuesday and Wednesday. They have one day, depending on if their address is even or odd. And then the residential customers also have one-day-a-week irrigation schedule. It's on either a Saturday or a Sunday. But the goal of it is to, obviously, to reduce the water usage. Irrigation is one of the biggest uses that we have for the water system. And so it's part of our program to reduce the water use on a daily basis.
I see. And Donna, what else is involved in Stage 3?
Well, there are some other restrictions that include car washing. You can only wash your car on the day of the week that you're able to irrigate, and your foundation and your trees and any new plantings, which we really discourage anyone from planting anything new in Stage 3, just because it's going to be hard to keep it alive. But those irrigation for your trees and for your foundation should occur only on the day that you're allowed to water as well. And you need to be using a drip system or a handheld hose with a positive shut-off nozzle, something where you can really control the amount of water, and you can only water those sites for up to 2 hours on that irrigation day.
Interesting, and I'm glad you brought that up because I recently, myself, last year I should say, kind of experienced a situation back in the fall with my homeowners association with them saying, you know, your plants and this and that died and you have to replace them, but then you discourage people from planting new things. So how do you work with that? Just people have to...
Well, we do encourage water conserving landscaping and for people to take a look and use drought tolerant plants, native plants, things that actually survive better in our warmer temperatures here. We have some resources out on our website that people can refer to so that they can get lists of those plants and some things that they can do to make a more drought tolerant landscape.
Wonderful. And what happens if people do not comply with those restrictions that you have?
Well, we patrol throughout the city, and if we see someone is irrigating at an inappropriate time or on a day that irrigation's not allowed, we stop and give them a written warning so that they have that available to refer to. It'll tell them where to go on our website to get more information about our restrictions. And we try to have a conversation with them because our #1 goal is to conserve water, to make sure that we're going to have water available in the future. And so we really want to convey that message. It's not about citing someone. And in fact, we haven't written any citations, but we have issued well over 100 warnings, written warnings, and we've had about 450 contacts with people where we've had some sort of conversation or a verbal warning. Some of those are on the telephone, some of those are face-to-face, but our big promotion here is to just educate people on the wise use of water.
Well, Donna, I'm glad you mentioned mentions and messages because we actually got a message on Facebook from a viewer who has this particular question for you. He wants to know, where do these things come from? Particularly, we're talking about Gordon. He wants to know, where do they call to report a violator? One of his neighbors seems to water his grass every day. So I know y'all are out there patrolling, as Donna said, Todd, but if for some reason y'all miss someone or the neighbor feels you may have because this person continues to do this over and over again, Gordon wants to know, what can he do?
Well, certainly call us. Our number's 972-721-2281, and that's a number that's answered 24 hours a day. So we have employees that are out in the field literally 24 hours a day so that we can go and respond and check on those things. And like Donna said, we're going to knock on the door and talk to the customer and make sure they're aware of the current water restrictions and give them some advice on things they can do with the irrigation system and so forth.
Good. Well, you mentioned that you haven't had any fines. You've just had warnings so far. So when you go and talk to people, do you find that they are willing to make the change once you make them aware of the situation?
And Donna has more experience with this than I do, but certainly the customers that I've talked to, once they realize the severity of it and our lake level is low, then they're generally very willing to work with us and do what they can to reduce their usage.
Good, and I'm glad you mentioned that the lake levels are low, because that was the next question I have for you, Todd, is where does the water come from?
Well, we're a little unique in that we do have our own water supply, and our water comes from Lake Chapman, also known as Lake Cooper. And if you're driving down I-30, the signs still say Lake Cooper. But it's near Sulphur Springs, so it's coming a long distance away. And it makes up about 85% of our water supply comes out of that one lake. And that's why we focus so much on the levels in that lake.
Interesting. And I'm just curious, with us relying on that lake, Donna, how low has the water level gotten at Lake Chapman?
Well, it was quite low last summer and into the fall, and we had dropped actually when we moved to stage 2 and then into stage 3. We were at seriously low lake levels, but right now it's about 7.5 feet low.
Interesting. Okay. And how many cities, Todd, depend on Lake Chapman?
We obviously the city of Irving, and then there's the North Texas Municipal Water District, which serves most of the cities up in Collin County, the McKinney, Allen, Plano. They also pull water from the lake, and then the city of Sulphur Springs uses water from the lake. And then also the Upper Trinity Regional Water District, which serves some cities around Denton County. So you've got 4 major entities that use it as a water supply.
Wow. And I know you guys were mentioning that it's pretty low right now, and we had another Facebook question about that. It's from Brian, and Brian, we did get your message. He says, I thought the drought was over.
Well, we would like for it to be over. But, and you are seeing a lot of media reports right now that the drought is over, and for some areas of the Metroplex, that's true. The lakes around here have fared a little bit better than ours just because they've seen more rainfall than what our lake has seen. But the thing that we focus on is our lake level and the fact that it's still 7 feet low. For us, the drought's not over, and so we need it to rain and need it to rain. That'll feed the rivers and streams that feed the lake.
Wonderful. So we need some more rain. Donna, the recent rain that we have received, is it making a difference at all?
Well, we had an extremely wet January. I think it was the wettest recorded January in history, and recorded history, that being the important point. But and that helped a lot to boost our lake levels.
Sure.
But we still are low, as Todd said, and we've got to think about how much water we have and not use too much of it right now, so that we'll have it in the future when we need it.
That definitely is an important thing to do, is have that water. We definitely need it. And so, Todd, since we have been in stage 3 restrictions throughout the whole year so far, are people complying? Are they really conserving, have you found?
Yeah, we've seen good results from stage 2 and even more so in stage 3. We've seen, depending on how you look at it, which month you compare to previous years, anywhere from 5 to over 20% reduction. Wow. This year compared to last year and even over the previous 5 years. So we have seen good compliance from our customers on trying to work with us and reduce water usage.
Good, and that's the customers. Donna, I'm curious to know about the city. I know some people were saying, okay, well, we've seen people out there in the city using a lot of water while tending to landscaping or washing city vehicles. What adjustments have been made?
We actually updated our drought plan to reflect some of the actions that the city was going to take and be a lot more specific about that. And we're reducing our wet street sweeping and also looking at how we're watering our landscaping. We've worked closely with the Parks and Recreation Department to come up with some other solutions and to use water from some of our dead-end fire hydrants that have to be flushed, so that water is put in their water trucks and then taken out and used on some of our city landscaping. They've been really good to look at the spray parks and the potential, if we were still in stage 3, when those spray parks open, they would reduce spray park use by 50%. So there are some measures that we have put in place that are going to help us continue to save water as long as we're in this elevated drought stage.
Wonderful. That is definitely good information. And Todd, I know around the city people may notice crews opening up fire hydrants and letting the water run. Why is that being done?
A couple of reasons. This time of year we have the fire department out checking the fire hydrants. They go out for a couple of months and make sure they're functioning properly, and they let us know if there's any repairs that we need to make. So they're opening them up and testing them to make sure that they're working properly. We also go out on a monthly basis. It's required by the state regulatory agency, the TCEQ, that the dead ends in our system where water could stagnate, that we're getting it flushed out every month. So we have a number of locations throughout the city that we're out opening up the fire hydrants and actually letting them run a little bit to make sure that we're bringing fresh water into the system for our customers, trying to maintain the best water quality that we can.
I see. So it's actually beneficial. You're taking care of the water. You're not wasting it.
Exactly. We want to provide the best water that we can for our customers. We want to keep it moving through the system.
Okay. Well, let's go back and talk a little bit more about the customer usage of water. Donna, I was telling you how I was dealing with my homeowners association saying you need to plant these, but then I'm like, well, how am I going to water them because you can't water? But something else you may find from consumers is that they're wanting to know, well, what about a pool or what about a fountain? How do I take care of that in these conditions?
In stage 3, we're asking that people turn off ornamental fountains unless it's supporting aquatic life, or it can also be left on if it's got a recirculating system. But the important point is to think about you are getting some evaporation, and it's better to be in a more conservative stance at this point. We want to make sure we've got water to drink and to bathe with.
Definitely. And that's important to point out again because we are talking about water conservation and people complying with that. But what other options, Todd, is the city looking into for the future? I know conservation is important, but what are the other options you're looking into?
Well, conservation is obviously very important because it's one of the best ways that we can to conserve the water, and that's water that we don't have to go out and acquire.
Sure.
Reuse water is becoming a very popular thing, and that's actually once the water's been used and treated. Typically the treatment plants will discharge it into the river and it goes downstream for another community to use. We're actually starting to capture that and pull that back up into the city. It's a great source for irrigation, for golf courses, for commercial industrial use. And so we're looking at how we can expand the use of reuse water, as all cities are. We're also looking in other parts of the state. In East Texas, we're involved as part of a regional group looking in the Sulphur River Basin for potentially some future water supplies, and also up into Oklahoma. You look at the areas that receive more rainfall, and that's further east in Texas and also further north and northeast in Oklahoma. And working with a number of different groups to pursue and look for options up there. And any of these options that are, when you're talking about building a new lake in East Texas or maybe changing the way lakes are operated, those are all long-term projects.
Right.
So you're looking at 20 years, 30 years sometimes. So you have to continue to look at a number of different options continually, and then in the meantime we're doing what we can with conservation and then trying to work with reuse so that we can develop that as a supply for us as well.
Well, those are definitely all great things, and we hope to stay and want to stay optimistic, but just in case we need the information, let's talk to Donna about possible stage 4 restrictions. What would the difference be?
Well, stage 4 would be no irrigating of landscapes, and that would be pretty restrictive. We don't anticipate at all that we would move into stage 4. There's been a lot of discussion about what it would take to move that direction, and we feel like our water supply is in good shape, and so for the moment we're not going to be considering stage 4.
Good. That's definitely a good thing. All right, well, we've covered some of the mandatory restrictions, Donna, but what are some other things we can do just around our homes to conserve water, starting inside the house, let's say?
Well, I think some of the simplest things are turn off the faucet. Don't let it run when you're doing something. When you are brushing your teeth, don't let it run. Get a cup, fill it with water, and use that then. Also use water conserving plumbing fixtures. You can install, there's some pretty simple fixtures that you can install, shower heads, aerators on your faucets, and if you get into a bigger, sort of more ambitious project, maybe you put a new toilet in that's water conserving. But there are some things out there that you can install that will be beneficial in saving water. And also some water conserving appliances that are out there. If you're shopping for a new washing machine,
oh, I see.
there are some that are beneficial, and you want to look for some of those high efficiency.
Interesting. Todd, any other ideas that you'd like to add to that we can do?
Well, I would say the biggest water use we have is irrigation. So doing a thorough check on your irrigation system, making sure that you're walking around as the system's operating and are the heads functioning properly, or you have any broken heads that we're just wasting water from. And we also offer a service that we'll come out and do a water audit at your house, and we'll come and walk through your house and show you some of the common ways that that water is wasted in the home and give you some ideas there. So.
Well, good. Well, I think that's probably a big part of it too, Donna, is oftentimes people just don't know they're wasting water or don't even pay attention to the fact because you've learned this habit. You may turn on the water, put your toothbrush under there, get it wet, and walk away and start like watching television or something,
right.
and and forget the water's even on as you're brushing your teeth. But the little simple points that you brought up are really important. Things like not leaving the water on while you're brushing the teeth can make a huge difference. I mean, we all have to brush our teeth, so that's a lot of water that can be saved.
Absolutely.
And then other things that you mentioned too, let's talk about a little more. In addition to brushing the teeth, you were saying around the house, even like maybe the shower. When you have the shower on, use it, get out instead of leaving it running all the time.
Right. You can use a timer that'll restrict the amount of time that you're in the shower and help you be more aware of that, okay. As well as installing a low flow shower head that might help you conserve even more water.
Well, since these are things we learn and become accustomed to throughout life, do you guys find it's important to work with children? I'm sure you do, teaching them like when they're brushing their teeth not to waste the time in the water like, we tend to do ourselves as we get older. So do you work with children to make sure they know the importance of water conservation, Todd?
Yeah, absolutely. We have a program where we're out talking to the children in the different schools throughout Irving, and that's a big part of our program because if we can change some behavior early on in life, that's a behavior that they'll continue to see. And then also they take it home to mom and dad and remind mom and dad about not running the water while they're brushing their teeth and things like that. So we get good results out of going into schools and a lot of enthusiasm from the kids as well.
Yeah, they're definitely helpful, keeping
Right.
parents on track. So let's go back and talk a little bit about outside the home. We were talking a bit about it. Todd mentioned some of the things we can do. I know there are particular hoses, special hoses you can use when you do need to water that aren't just running a lot of water out. And there's other things you can do as well to help conserve water. Can you tell us about some of those options you have, Donna?
Well, you can use soaker hoses, and you can put timers on some of these fixtures so that they're not going to run and just run. In particular, you don't want to have water running into the gutter and just running down the street. Right. That's something we want to make sure is people are aware of how much water they're using when they're using these devices. Also, on a hose, a positive shutoff device. So if you're out watering in the yard and you're walking from one tree to the next, the water's not just pouring out the end of the hose. You shut it off, go to the next place, then use your water. Or when you're washing your car, using one of those nozzles is very effective, as well as buckets. Gather water in rainwater in buckets or in rain barrels, which you can do some rain barrel harvesting and be able to use that water then for your potted plants and some other more isolated needs.
Great. See, that's an idea I hadn't even thought about. But I'm glad you brought up the timer too and the soaker hose. So I had to invest in one of those. And the first thing I thought was, what is this going to cost me? This is going to be super expensive, but it's really not. It's very affordable to get the soaker hose, and even the timers. They're very inexpensive as well, don't you find?
A lot of these fixtures are quite inexpensive. You just go to your local hardware store and they're readily available.
And they're very helpful, I'm sure, when you have certain days that you can water, because I know on my little timer box, there's certain days you can water and there's certain times you can water, and you can literally press the button. They make it easy for those of us who are just not really walking around with green thumbs. You just press the button the time you want it to come on and the day you want it to come on, and it comes on for that period of time that you want it to, and then it stops so that you are in compliance. And also you're getting your tree or your lawns or whatever you had to plant taken care of. So I'm sure you guys are getting good feedback from that. Well, let me ask you this, Donna, what has the City of Irving been doing to spread the message about the restrictions you do have in place?
Well, we've had a number of articles that we have put into various city publications and some news releases and advertising what drought stage we're in. Also, just some public service announcements. And of course, we benefit because we share with the region the water sources, and so most of the cities and water agencies throughout the region are working with each other to send the message. What can be confusing, and I did want to mention, is that from one community to the next, drought stages are defined differently. So it's really important, if you live in Irving, look at what Irving has listed for our restrictions. If you live in Dallas, they may say, okay, we're in drought stage 1, but their drought stage 1 is equivalent to our stage 2. So it's real important to go ahead and look at what we have specifically on the website.
Good, I'm glad you bring that up. So yeah, if you're watching City Source all the time or you're watching Open Line all the time, then you're getting the information about the City of Irving. But if you're watching some of the other news programs that cover the whole Metroplex, it could become quite confusing because you may hear them report on one particular city and not Irving, so it's important to check the website. So good advice there. All right, well, Todd, tell me about the leak detection program.
Well, having a strong leak detection program is a very important part of our conservation program in general. We have about 1,500 miles of pipe throughout the city, and at any given time you can have many different leaks. The ones that come above ground, where you can see water come above ground, those are easy. We can spot those and get those repaired. But Donna has a team that actually goes out, and we install listening devices on the system. And we'll listen to the system for days and trying to find out where those leaks are that never come to the surface, but they're underground. And so we found over 200 breaks or leaks that way last year that we typically wouldn't have known about because you couldn't see them. And so we're doing more and more of that. We're buying more of the equipment and devoting more staff time to that because we feel like it's an important part of our overall conservation program, making sure that we go to a lot of trouble to build the infrastructure and build the lakes and get the water here, so we want to do everything we can not to waste it and not to lose it through leaks in the system.
Definitely. And what's the next project?
The next project, we have a lot of projects going on.
I can imagine.
And infrastructure, just in general, is a big part of what we do as a utility. And so we have a program right now where we're investing about $20 million this year back into our infrastructure system. And that's replacing water and sewer lines on over 40 streets throughout the city, and also doing some major relocations to get one of our old water supply lines that's over 50 years old relocated out of 183 in preparation for the future construction of 183. So at any given time, we have projects throughout the city that are prioritized based on where we're seeing continuous breaks and leaks in the system, where maybe we're seeing some discolored water due to old cast iron pipes. We look at a lot of different things where we're getting complaints, and we continually update that priority list and reinvest back in the system when we get the money to do so.
Very good. And Donna, when we talk about the pipes, so you're talking about a lot, how big is our water system?
Well, our water system is quite large. And actually, I'm going to defer to Todd because I know what the numbers are, but he, being the engineer, is much more on top of that.
Sure.
On a daily basis, we pump a little over 40 million gallons a day. That's average throughout the year.
Wow.
In the peak days of the summer, we pumped about 67 million gallons a day.
Okay.
This time of year with the conservation, of course, and people don't water as much in December, January, February, early winter, early spring. We're a little over 20 million gallons a day. So that shows you the impact of the...
It's a lot.
It's still a lot, but
it's
less than we typically would this time of year.
I see.
And it's an indication of the conservation program working and the drought contingency plan working.
Wonderful. And Todd, the city recently celebrated the opening of the MacArthur Pump Station. And can you tell us a little bit about that facility?
Yeah, it's a project we're very excited about. It replaced a facility that was built in the early 50s, and we had a lot of outdated equipment. We had pumps that were really on their last leg, and so we were able to go into that site and really clean it up. It had some old buildings and facilities that we're able to demolish. We pushed the pump station back away from the road and installed a park. And it also has, it's really a demonstration garden of some drought-tolerant landscaping. As Donna mentioned earlier, that's something we're trying to promote more and more, and that's a place that you can go and see an installation of drought-tolerant landscaping. But it's the facility itself, it's a very nice-looking facility, and it's more reliable. We have more pumping capacity, and so it's been a great project all the way around.
It sounds like it, and you were describing those gardens, and those are right in front, right? So
That's
people
correct.
can see them. That's awesome,
Right.
and they definitely serve as an important example in this time of conservation, I'd say. Well, Donna, what other programs are happening with water utilities right now?
Well, we have been real involved with the local school district and promoting workforce types of issues, and this is very important in water utilities because we have a group of people that is retiring and we're losing the expertise that we need. And so we've gone into a local high school here and we're helping high school students get the background they need to pass their basic water and wastewater exams with TCEQ and get licensing directly out of high school so that they can go straight into the water utilities industry. And it's been a really important program statewide. We've helped also launch programs with the Waco schools and Arlington schools. So we've been very involved with that, and we've got staff that are in a classroom virtually every week and taking students on tours so that they learn more about the industry and the importance of water, because most of it, with infrastructure being underground, we don't think about it when we don't see it. And so it's really important for people to realize that you can put together a really great career in the water utilities industry.
Well, that's good that you're going right into the high schools and working with the students and getting them interested. And like you said, it's just awareness. Sometimes they have no idea about all the opportunities that are out there in the water industry. And so for those who are watching right now who had no idea there was that kind of program and they want to call, what's the number to call to get more information about that?
You can call our main line at 972-721-2281, and they'll connect you with a staff member that supports that program.
Perfect. And that's the same number to call as well, Todd, if you have any concerns or complaints or whatever.
That number works 24 hours a day. So any issues you have, whether you see a water break or you have a question on water conservation, you want to report your neighbor, whatever it is, you can call that number and we'll answer it 24 hours a day.
Perfect. Well, we thank you all so much for taking time out of your busy schedules to come over and tell us all about how we're doing right now with conserving water and how we can do even better in the future. So thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
And thank you for watching. I'm Starlene Stringer. Please be sure to join us on Wednesday, April 11th at 7 p.m. for our next edition of Open Line. It'll be a special edition focusing on the May City Council election, and we'll be inviting all of the candidates to participate. So if you have questions, email them to ictn@cityofirving.org, or we'll consider them for our next edition of Open Line and let you know what those questions are. We'll see you then.